Now, it's a fascinating conversation. I want to get to the breakout players now that we expect to come out, show us a little something at Oklahoma this year. So, I want to pick an offensive one and a defensive one, and I got them coming out of my ear. So I'm really interested to see what guy on the offensive side of the ball are you most excited to see this year that could have a breakout season?
I am going to go with a guy who, towards the end of last season, really started to see a ton of meaningful targets, specifically in the red zone. And I think the world of this dude. And I think it's only a matter of time before he really explodes. And it sounds like, by all accounts, this could be that year. I'm going with Braden Willis. I think that this guy at the H-back position, obviously Austin Stogner is going to be that major cloud, but I think Stogner is going to be seeing a couple of different roles. And as a result, that kind of opens a window of opportunity for Braden Willis to step into. I think, obviously, if you know anything about Braden Willis at home, the guy played at Arlington Martin, a very good program in the state of Texas. And he did literally everything: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. He was probably fixing the stadium lights on the afternoons. I mean, the dude, just anything you ask him, he can accomplish it. He got in the program. He's got bigger, faster, stronger. He's incredibly athletic as it is. And I think as a result, Lincoln Riley leaned on him a little bit towards the end of last year because he saw a guy who really can do anything you want him to do in crunch time. Taking that into consideration with another offseason under his belt, I think Braden Willis is headed for a very accomplished season. And he's going to fit right into that H-back role in a year where they're going to need to utilize some check downs or some quick throws to help out Rattler, a young quarterback. I think Braden will definitely benefit from this. And as a result, man, I mean, he's going to have a very special season. I can't wait to watch it.
I think there are a number of people that are going to put Stogner in that spot, so I'm really intrigued that you go with Braden Willis there. Also, we need to add that position is still healthy, and that position has not had any opt-outs. Like, that H-back position might get a lot more run than people are expecting it to get, precisely because they just don't have dudes everywhere. You're light at tailback, you're light at wide receiver. You could be light at offensive line, depending on whether or not somebody contracts the COVID. And yet, steady as she goes is Braden Willis, is Austin Stogner, is Obi Obialo, is Mikey Henderson, is
Jeremiah Hall.
Right. Who's probably going to start at that position in a two-back set. So, no, that's a very interesting pick, and I like it. I like the quarterbacks coming out of high school. They usually show me something worthwhile. On the offense side of the ball, I'm going to go with Marcus Major over a TJ Pledger. Tell you why. I'm having a conversation with someone who has been following OU football and OU running backs for some time and coaches for a living. And the way that he had talked about Major to me was to say, RJ, you don't understand. The kid from Millwood is the best tailback on the roster. I said, well, Kennedy Brooks opted out. I didn't stutter. The best tailback on the roster is Marcus Major, the kid coming out of Millwood, a Falcon. And I said, man, I want to believe it because, RJ will stand for the North Oklahoma City kids. Like Star Spencer, Millwood, got my whole heart. Douglas got my whole heart. Booker T and North Tulsa got my whole heart. McLean, so forth. And he's saying, watch. I know that they're probably going to start TJ Pledger. But if Marcus Major gets the same opportunities that Trey Sermon got in 2017, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Because that's the way that people were talking about Trey Sermon at the time was, yo, that's the dude. We don't understand what this Rodney Anderson cat is. And then Rodney Anderson became who he was. But Trey Sermon is the guy. That's the way that people are talking about Marcus Major. And the fact that we haven't actually seen him play football is even more intriguing to me. And we're talking about breakout stars, right? We're talking about guys that haven't had opportunities in the way that they're probably going to get opportunities in 2020. And I'm really excited to see what that running back group does because all those dudes got to play. TJ's got to play, and Marcus has got to play, and Seth has got to play. Like Ramondre, we're still waiting on him to get cleared, right? If he does, and I don't know that he will. I'm expecting for Ronnie Perkins, Trajan Bridges, and Ramondre Stevens to be out for the first 4 to 5 games of the season, and then there she goes. But I guess some honorable mentions in here. got to be Theo Wease, right? Because we don't know what we're getting out of Theo Howard, even as he seems to be cleared to play and he's going through practice. And Obi Obialo is somebody, I don't know what, I put him in that H-back tight end spot, but it remains to be seen. And this is all pending. Charleston Rambo just is Charleston Rambo. So, like, who are we missing in there? Who are you watching for? Even on the offensive line, like Bray Walker or somebody of the sort.
Yeah, I think Bray Walker is a really interesting pick. For me, I also think about breakout as in taking the next step. And for me, I think Marquis Hayes going into this year has a lot to prove. I think, obviously, getting that first year last year, there were ups and downs, right? I mean, obviously, he had that highlight style of block in the West Virginia game, basically saving Jalen Hurts for a touchdown throw to T.D. Lee. But, I mean, also, he obviously racked up a ton of personal fouls and some unnecessary calls with his aggression. I think going into this year, this is going to be Marquis Hayes' opportunity to really break out in the national stage because I think he has all-American caliber talent. It's just about putting it together. And last year being his first year as a starter, I think for me, going into this season, he's going to have a lot to prove. And I think he will really prove himself as one of the better guards, not only in the Big 12 Conference, but in the nation. And so I'm excited for that. You mentioned Theo. I'm really interested in what Theo can bring to the table. But you took another one that I was really thinking about the other day because I wrote a piece on him when he transferred. I mean, Obi Obialo, no one is talking about this guy. But at Marshall, if you go put on the tape, this guy was a jump ball master. And I mean, he's 6'3", 200 and something pounds. Just what you want as a perimeter wideout who could potentially slide inside. Fascinating what Obialo is going to be able to bring to the table, especially because, again, there's been some injuries in the wide receiver position, and the depth concerns could open up an opportunity for Obialo that I don't think we're really giving him enough credit for. So I'm fascinated to see what some of these guys can bring to the table this year offensively, and it'll be interesting to see if these guys can come together and uphold the standard on that side.
So on the other side of the ball, I'm interested to hear your take because I'll go first on this one because the easy pick is Deshaun White, and I understand there's a lot of people that want to talk about Deshaun White in the same way that we might talk about Curtis Lofton. He played the 1 year, he had a great year, he goes to the NFL. I'm excited to find out which one of these ends and which one of these will linebackers step up, which is to say that give me all the Marcus Stripling stock you can hand me. That dude coming out of high school was one of the fastest guys I've ever seen get off the ball at his position. I watched him go against Evan Neal at the opening final in 2018, and he was killing him. And Evan Neal is going to be a first-round draft pick at Alabama. He's that good. When Stripling got opportunities last year, he looked great. He looked stupendous. And now that you're down Ronnie Perkins and you're down Marcus Hicks, which is not – I mean, it's a bigger deal than you think because that dude is a monster if he's healthy, and he just hasn't been the last couple of years. But that's one that I can't wait to see because winning him over Texas A&M was not a small thing in 2019. I mean, the way that Riley closed out the defensive recruiting without a coordinator cannot be overstated. I mean, we're talking about Jeremiah Cordell adding in there, that dude that I thought was going to go to Oregon, and they were going to have an outstanding defense. And then I want to know if Brian Asamoah is as good as I've been led to believe because all the talk is Brian Asamoah at will linebacker. And I'm going, guys, this dude, we weren't even sure if he was a linebacker a couple years ago. He's playing running back coming out of high school, right? That's what his position is. And it's like, no, dude, we understand him to be this guy. And I said, didn't you drop Robert Barnes and Jamal Morris down there expressly to get these reps? And Brian is beating them. We're getting competition. This is the way that it works. So I'm going to go with Marcus Stripling and Brian Asamoah because I just believe in the reporting that I'm doing, and I believe in the people I'm talking to. What do you got?
I'm going to go with an interesting one, and I think it's a guy, again, who hasn't necessarily been given his due, but he played a pivotal role early on, and I think he's really headed for something special moving forward. I'm going with Jaden Davis. Jaden Davis was a guy who early in the year got some meaningful snaps, created a turnover, if I remember correctly, and then if you will also remember in the Texas game, when they first utilized that dime package, it was Jaden Davis who they used as that dime guy. And he early on showed flashes of greatness. But then, of course, I mean, he went through the natural ups and downs of being a young player. I feel like I'm the leader of the young players going to struggle party. I feel like I have to constantly remind people that that's something that's going to happen. But as a result, I mean, these guys learn from stuff like that. And so going into this season with Parnell Motley leaving, with Justin Harrington going down to injury, some of these other defensive backs like Trey Norwood or Trey Brown being asked to do a lot more, maybe this is Jaden Davis' opportunity to really provide some meaningful snaps. I think, again, he's a really good player, and he's got that Florida aggression that you want a defensive back. He's just still learning the game. And I think if he's had a really good offseason and he feeds off of what he was able to accomplish and learn in 2019, he's headed for something really, really special in 2020. And then that would go to the other defensive back pick that I've got, because obviously you touched on guys in the front seven. Jeremiah Cordell, and like, how is this dude going to factor in? Because he has worked his tail off to get to this point. I mean, one of those stronger work ethics that I've seen from an OU player. I'll never forget, real quick story about him. Over 2 hours before kickoff out in Bedlam, I mean, the starters are just kind of out there messing around, stretching. People always make fun of me for showing up super early to football games, so I'm out there with them. But on the far side of the field, the only one who is grinding and getting into some drills and training is Jeremiah Cordell with G.A. Will Johnson. And I think in that moment, I said, okay, Cordell's got a chance to be something like next level, because the dude, he knew he wasn't playing almost at all in that year. But he constantly showed up and grinded. And by all accounts, this offseason, he's taken a step. He's able to put it all together. I mean, Oklahoma's got two good defensive backs that I'm really excited about, and those are just two names of a stable of young defensive back guys who are on the come up right now.
I think that Jaden Davis pick is a sexy pick because he's so smart. Like, yes, young guys are going to struggle. Like, that's what it is. Even 5 stars. And people get all sorts of upset when a 5-star true freshman plays like a true freshman as opposed to what we project him to be in his 3rd year when he's draft eligible. But, Cordell is a monster in his own right, but from a physical standpoint. He's got all the tools. I talked with Jaden Davis, and I learned something about football. That's not regular, right? Like, I know a lot about football. I don't know everything about football, and I certainly am learning something new every day. But it's rare that a 16-year-old kid can talk me through leverages and coverages from the standpoint of the slot, the field, and the boundary, and tell me exactly what I'm looking at and why it makes sense. That's who Jaden Davis is. He's so smart, and they put him at corner at the outside, but I could just as easily see him moving inside. He's just so valuable out there. No, I really like that pick because he's so cerebral in that he'll know where the quarterback wants to go with the ball, and he'll get there first. And he's got enough natural ability to make up for any mistakes that might occur. I mean, that's what we're really looking at when we're talking about corners is, can you actually make up the ground? Because even if you're right, you're going to have to make up the ground. And if you're wrong, you're going to have to just be that much naturally quicker and able to maneuver your body to get between the ball and the receiver while also whipping your head around so you don't pick up a personal foul. Like, no, that's a really great pick.